I'm a strong believer in mocking things up and testing them and trying them on something that doesn't matter before I start doing the process on something that does matter. I really would not want to learn on the job doing stringers and transom work, doing fiberglass when I don't have any skills or knowledge in that. So I put this together out of scrap wood. It's all the different elements that I could think of that are going to go into the boat and the seats and the transom and the stringers and all that stuff. So let me just kind of show you what's what. This top piece here, I cut a couple slots. I actually am glad I did that because there was a learning curve on how to cut these slots. If you can see that I kind of dinged up that end, so this one came out actually pretty good. So I learned something about how to do the router on that. And then I really wanted nice rounded corners, and I figured out a way to use some Douglas fir. This was cut into a 2" by 2" square. You can look down here and see all my racks of 2 by 2 Douglas fir. So that's what the corners are made out of, and I used the router table. I used the table saw with a dado blade on it to cut these. I didn't notice this, but I'm missing a chunk, so I have to fill that up with some thickened epoxy. But in any event, between the geometry with the corners and of course this is a little bit flimsy because it's not supported on the other side. All the stuff that I'm going to be building is going to be basically a box, so it's going to stiffen it up a lot. Alright, obviously there's going to be some holes drilled, and I don't know if you can see, but there's a radius all the way around here. This is radiused. That is a 3/8 radius. And I've got different radiuses written down on the different sides. I want to figure out how much of a radius I need to get the fiberglass mat or cloth, whatever it is, to bend around this edge. If you have a sharp edge, it's not going to lay flat, it's going to delaminate, and that'll be very weak. This is I guess a depression, counter bore, whatever you want to call it. I've got one of these that I'm going to have to fiberglass, and so I tried one there just to see what will happen. Alright, so here's the inside, and there's the hole again from this side. I wrote down how big the hole is right now. I used some verniers, calipers to measure that very precisely because I want to know how much each layer of fiberglass adds to it. When I've got the drawings done for different things, I've got obviously a finish size in mind, so I need to know how much oversized things have to be to come out right after all the fiberglass is put on. This edge here I hit with a 4" grinder with a flap disc on it. I wanted to see if you know, I don't have the ability or time to go and do a really nice router edge, what would happen if I just hit it with the flap wheel. So we'll try that here. And then on some door frames, I've got something that looks like this. This is a 1/2 inch radius all the way around. And then I've got some different holes and fasteners. This is a threaded insert, 1/4-20, and so I've got places where I'm going to use that. Obviously I got to keep the fiberglass from getting into the threads, so there's a bolt in there. and we'll see how that works. The next ones are different size holes. So the idea, when you're dealing with fiberglass, plywood, in a boating situation, even the real good marine stuff that I'm using, eventually it's going to get water into it. The most likely place is through a screw hole. That's where they all seem to start rotting from. So the way to combat that, if I needed a screw in this location, we're going to fill that hole up with thickened epoxy. Make sure it's smudged in there and tightly packed. After it's dry, you sand it down smooth, and then the hole that you actually need is going to be drilled into the fiberglass. The wood itself is not going to be exposed at all. So I've got different size holes. I don't know, I'm probably going to end up figuring out which one I like the best. Obviously the bigger the hole, the more thickened epoxy it's going to be and the more sanding. So there's probably one of those that's going to turn out to be my favorite. The last thing here is an 832 fastener. This is, I don't know what they call it. It's a flange pound-in insert. And I got that, I'm using that on some of the seats somewhere. We've got a currently 90-degree angle here, and I'm going to use the thickened peanut butter to make a fillet on that side. Alright, and then on the bottom side, you can see upside down, this side is going to be epoxy, and there's not a whole lot of features on this because I'm going to use the epoxy only for structural stuff, so I'm not going to do anything crazy. The epoxy is going to be this side, and this side. Everything else I'm going to use PE polyethylene. So why do you use one versus the other? Well, epoxy is your go-to resin if you need strength. Polyester it's not that it's weak, it's just epoxy is stronger. So the other consideration is epoxy is about 3 times the price of the epoxy resin. I'm sorry, epoxy is 3 times more money than the PE. So obviously, money being what it is and in short supply, I'm going to try and use the polyester for as many places as I can, and the epoxy where it is needed for strength. So that's pretty much the plan. And the other thing I'm going to make sure I do is I'm going to write down the thicknesses. I'm going to use the verniers to accurately measure each thickness and how much each layer of fiberglass of whatever type adds to it. Okay, the last thing that I'll show you is my Jeff-made plywood. These are thin slices. I wrote down the thicknesses, but they're somewhere around a 1/4 inch, maybe a little heavy on some of them. And I'm going to make my stringers out of this stuff. Why would I do that? God, that's a good question. So my stringers have to be 139 inches long. You obviously can't get plywood that's 139 inches long. 96 inches is 8 feet, and that's about it. So I would have to sharf the joints of 2 pieces of plywood to get the strength that I need or think I need, and that scares me. Sharfing takes a lot of extra wood, first of all, and I just hate the idea of trusting a glued joint for the strength. So since I have a buddy close by who has a horizontal mill and a yard full of Douglas fir, I came up with the way of I'm going to make fiberglass in between each of these layers with a layer of the 1808 heavy stuff. And what I need to do is get the first 2 layers to be 0.709 all finished, and that will be the thickness of the groove where the stringers have to sit. So I'll show you more about that later. And then the 3rd layer will kind of hang over the side and just add a little extra strength and thickness. Alright, that's enough for now. I am going to get ready to do some of this peanut butter building, and we'll see how that goes. Bye for now.